It's a moment that shook the NBA to its core. Luka Dončić, one of the brightest stars in basketball, leaving the Dallas Mavericks for the Los Angeles Lakers. A move that seemed impossible only days before. It's not just the trade itself that left people in disbelief. It's what came next that was truly mind-blowing. Instead of a smooth transition, instead of the dust settling, the Mavericks made one wrong move after another. Rumors started flying, leaks, speculations. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and every negative detail about Luka's personal life, his habits, and his worth as a franchise player was being laid out in public. The sheer volume of these leaks and their perfect timing turned what should have been a simple trade into a full-blown PR disaster. But here's the kicker through all of this, Luka. He never bit. He never gave them the satisfaction of a public reaction. Instead, he stayed silent and let his game do the talking. The very first sign that something was off came just hours after the trade. On February 3rd, 2025, the Mavericks GM, Nico Harrison, took to the microphone. He said something that seemed harmless at first. Defense wins championships. But to anyone who knew the context, it wasn't just a basketball cliche. It was a not-so-subtle jab at Luka. Luka had never been known as a lockdown defender, but he was an offensive juggernaut, one of the best the game has seen in a generation. And yet, the Mavericks, who'd just traded away their superstar, were suddenly putting defense on a pedestal. Were they trying to say that Luka wasn't enough to win a title? To make matters worse, it didn't stop there. The leaks kept coming. Within days, stories emerged claiming that Luka had showed up to training camp weighing 270 pounds. If it was such a major issue, why wait until after the trade to drop that bombshell? Why not address it when it actually mattered at the start of the season? It wasn't just Luka. This was a tactic that many teams use to protect their stars. To keep internal issues, well, internal. But the Mavericks, they were broadcasting everything. And sure, Luka wasn't in perfect shape, but how many other NBA stars struggle with their weight? James Harden? Anyone? But Luka's critics were eager to paint him as someone who couldn't be trusted to stay in shape. And yet Luka was still putting up near triple-double numbers every single night. If that's out of shape, then what does it take to be in shape? Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, the leaks took a personal turn. Suddenly the media was talking about Luka's habits specifically. His alleged use of hookah and beer. Reports surfaced claiming these habits were concerning. But here's the thing. They were talking about things that allegedly happened when Luka was a teenager at Real Madrid. Seriously? This was the bombshell the Mavericks wanted to drop? The NBA is filled with players who have been open about smoking weed or drinking alcohol and no one bats an eye. Yet, Luka, he was being painted as some kind of irresponsible player based on things that happened years ago. It felt like a smear campaign designed to make Luka look bad, to paint him as someone who was more trouble than he was worth. Why bring up his past now after the trade? Was it to convince the fan base that the Mavericks were justified in moving on from a generational talent? But the leaks didn't stop with the media. The Mavericks owner, Patrick Dumont, stepped into the fray, taking things to a whole new level. In a public statement, Dumont openly questioned Luka's work ethic. He compared him to legends like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, implying Luka didn't have that same killer instinct. And then Dumont made another blunder. He compared Luka to Shaquille O'Neal, a player who was notoriously out of shape at times but still dominated. The contradictions were glaring. Was Luka lacking that drive, or was he like Shaq, a player who thrived despite being occasionally out of shape? It wasn't just misguided, it was damaging. How could the Mavericks' own owner make such a public statement about his former star player? It seemed like a desperate attempt to justify a trade that had no clear reasoning behind it. Then came the big reveal, the real reason Luka missed 5 games back in November. The Mavericks had claimed it was due to a wrist injury, but according to sources, the real reason was that Luka needed time to work on his conditioning. Here's the problem. If his conditioning was that much of an issue, why wasn't this addressed months earlier? Why sit on the story for so long only to leak it after Luka had been traded? It didn't add up. The timing screamed of a PR move, an attempt to paint Luka as someone who couldn't get in shape, even though the truth was far more complicated. But the Mavericks weren't interested in the truth. They were interested in spinning the narrative in their favor. Amid all the drama, Luka's response was perhaps the most surprising. He didn't respond at all. In a world where athletes often take to social media or press conferences to defend themselves, Luka chose silence. He didn't let the leaks or rumors get under his skin. Instead, he did what he's always done best: play basketball. When Luka faced the Mavericks for the first time after the trade, everyone was waiting for his reaction. Would he lash out? Would he make a statement? But Luka didn't need words. After the game, he walked past his former coach Jason Kidd and GM Nico Harrison without acknowledging them. No handshake, no eye contact. He didn't need to engage in any drama. It was a silent yet powerful statement. Luka was showing that he wasn't bothered by the leaks or the criticism. He knew his worth, and his response was to keep his focus on his game, letting his play on the court do the talking. Luka's maturity and composure only made the Mavericks' handling of the situation look worse. Instead of playing into the media's narrative, he let the Mavericks' attempts to justify the trade backfire. Meanwhile, Luka's move to Los Angeles, a masterstroke. Not long after the trade, he was making headlines for all the right reasons. On the court, he was back to being the Luka we all know. His performances, including 30-point games against teams like the Clippers, showed that Luka wasn't the problem. And then there's the Lakers. They've built a top-tier defense while letting Luka do what he does best: dominate offensively. They've found a way to work around his defensive shortcomings, and guess what? They're winning. On the other hand, Dallas is struggling. They're sitting outside the playoff picture while the Lakers are climbing near the top of the standings. The Mavericks' attempt to justify the trade and publicly criticize Luka has caused lasting damage, not just to Luka's reputation, but to the teams as well. Their strategy to spin the narrative has backfired, leaving Dallas looking desperate and untrustworthy. This situation will make it harder for the Mavericks to attract future talent. Free agents will now wonder, if things go wrong, will I be the next one thrown under the bus? Players want to feel secure in an organization, and the Mavericks have made that a lot less certain. The way Dallas handled Luka's departure has also damaged the trust of fans and current players, raising questions about the team's leadership. It's a tough position for the Mavericks to recover from, both on and off the court. In the end, Luka came out of this looking better than ever. While the Mavericks floundered, Luka stayed focused, letting his game speak for itself. He didn't need to engage in the drama. His actions did all the talking. The Mavericks, they miscalculated, and it's clear now they may have lost their star, but they've lost something even bigger: trust. Luka, he's still a star, and his future is brighter than ever. What do you think about all of this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, share, and subscribe for more NBA content like this.